In moreh Nevuchim, which is Guide to the Perplexed by the Rambam, he says when we're reading things, there are sometimes that there could be discrepancies or incoherence or like problems. So he says that this book that he wrote, he considers to be like a key that admits a person to places the gates of which would otherwise be closed. When the gates are open, men enter, and their souls will enjoy repose, and their eyes will be gratified. And even their bodies, after all the toil and labor, they will be refreshed. So it seems worth it to read this book, right? So in part 1's introduction, he says there are 7 inconsistencies, contradictions in literary works. There are 7 causes. So the first would be not clear sources. He says it's when you don't give the clear sources, you use various men's opinions, but you don't give names, or any 2 statements may belong to 2 different individuals. And number 2 is changing the mind. So at first the author holds like the first one's opinion, which he later changes his mind about, but he leaves both there. The third cause for inconsistency or contradiction or incoherence would be mixing up the literal and the figurative. Not all are meant to be literal. Sometimes yes, sometimes figurative, and including another meaning. So plus, sometimes figurative words can sound contrary if taken literally. Literally are contradicting. Then number 4 is sometimes it means this, sometimes it means that. Like let's say you use past tense, present tense, future tense. It's not like straight, right? It's like it doesn't all add up. So this is like when the premises are not identical in both statements, but for certain reasons they're not fully stated in these passages. Or 2 propositions which are proposing, right, are expressed by the same term without having the difference in the meaning pointed out that occur in 2 passages. The contradiction is apparent, but there's no actual reality contradiction, but it does. It's not identical. So it means it's not the same, right? Then number 5, he says, this is like when this theorem is difficult, obscure, and sometimes it has to be mentioned and assumed as if you know it, for the illustration of some more elementary, intelligible subject, which must be taught beforehand, the commencement being always with the easier thing. The teacher then, after facilitates explanation of the theorem, which have to be assumed as known, and the person must content himself with a general, sometimes inaccurate notion on the subject for the present, so that it could be explained to the student's comprehension capacity, as far as required to understand. Later on, the same subject is thoroughly treated and fully developed in the right place. So we might think of this as like a piece of the 7th floor you're building has to be in the 2nd floor, part of, for the foundation. You're like, why is it needed? And they're like, you'll understand later. Or like, you tell someone something they have to accept, and they're like, but I don't get it. You're like, you'll understand when you're older. Okay. Then number 6 is when someone who it's like when someone loses their train of thought. He says the contradiction is not apparent, but only becomes evident through a series of premises, based on, right? The larger the number of premises necessary to prove the contradiction between the 2 conclusions, the greater is the chance that it will escape detection, and the author won't perceive his own inconsistency. And when from each conclusion, by means of suitable premises, an inference is made, and from the enunciation, thus inferred by means of proper argument, other conclusions are formed. The whole process repeated many times. So I'll read that again, because I think it's a little wordy. When each conclusion, by means of suitable premises, when from each conclusion an inference is made from suitable premises, from the enunciation thus inferred by means of proper argument. Okay, so now you have, so if this, then this, then this, then this. Other conclusions are formed, the whole process repeated many times, then it's clear the original conclusions are contraries, contradictories, and if the contradiction between the original statements can at once be discovered, and the author, while saying the first, doesn't think of the second, there's even greater deficiency, and his words deserve no notice whatsoever. So it's like, so I was thinking like a kid saying, they were misbehaving, right? And they're like, well, I should get a lollipop because this and because this. And you know what? Like my sisters and you follow it through. It's like the kid doesn't even realize he contradicted himself. You're like, okay, I don't have to pay attention to this kid. But if you're reading in a book, you think the author knows something more than you. And meanwhile, they're doing something like that. Like maybe it's not really sensical, and maybe they don't even grasp that it's if this, then this, then this, then this, and it's kind of like that, yeah. I'm summarizing, like when I say it's not clear sources, the Rambam, the Maimonides didn't actually say that. I'm just trying to make it more simple. So it might not be how you would see it. Like, you might read it and think differently, so you're welcome to go check it out. And number 7 is some things are hidden, some are revealed, like in mysticism and Kabbalah. There are secrets. It's sometimes necessary to introduce such metaphysical matter as may partly be disclosed, but must partly be concealed, while therefore, on one occasion, the object which the author has in view may demand that the metaphysical problem be treated as solved in one way, and it may be convenient on another occasion to treat it as solved in the opposite way, and the author has to endeavor, by concealing the fact as much as possible, to prevent the uneducated reader from perceiving the contradiction. In other words, the author knows it sounds like a contradiction, but if you would understand the deep mysteries, you wouldn't think that it was you wouldn't think that it didn't make sense. You would know that in this case it's a mystical thing. You can't explain it. It could be even, we think of like a paradox. Some people say that's where you find God in the paradox. So it's like, well, in this case it operates like this, but in this case it operates like this. We think of light. Sometimes in experiments it looks like it's like flying like a wave, like it's in one long path. It's sort of like the flow. And sometimes it's like a particle. It has to hit the eye, right? They say it has to like touch the eye into the receptor. So, and it's like, so it depends in their experiments what they're getting. And it's like, well, maybe it's kind of like a mystery. It behaves in different ways. Maybe there's a million times more ways it behaves we don't have the capacity to even understand. So in this case, we're acting like this. In this case, we're acting like this. So I'm going to stop here. I think that's enough sort of material. And wishing everybody all the best. Bye-bye.